Hello everyone, let's discuss today's The Hindu editorial page. The first article is The Deep Import of the Article 370 Verdict. In this article, the writer says that the Supreme Court of India's controversial judgment on the August 2019 presidential orders has had a significant impact on the country. It undermines the rights of states vis-à-vis the Union, grants the president far larger powers over states than earlier imagined, and allows long-term political and territorial decisions to be made under limited emergency conditions. The judgment has also had far-reaching implications for the rest of the country. It undermines the rights of states vis-à-vis the Union, grants the president far larger powers over states than earlier imagined, and allows long-term political and territorial decisions to be made under limited-term emergency conditions. Three key elements have been less discussed: what the verdict means on the ground for Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, what it tells us about how the court sees peace and security, and what it implies for the foundation of democracy in India. In 1953 to 1955, the States Reorganization Commission held widespread public consultations during which villagers expressed their preference for which unit to belong. This judgment no longer allows the right to consult the state's elected representatives. On the ground, the judgment has been met with silence that is ambiguous in Jammu, disappointed in Kargil, welcoming in Ladakh with reservations, and ominous in the valley. Jammu's ambiguity centers on its experience of economic dispossession post-2019, when the Lieutenant Governor's administration awarded trade, retail, and mining rights to national rather than local industry. In Ladakh, Kargil's disappointment stems from the fact that its majority wants to retain ties to the valley. Leh's welcome of separation from the valley is tempered by the desire for an elected administration instead of a lieutenant governor. The most severe impact is undoubtedly in the valley, where the verdict has reinforced a widespread belief that Kashmiris are resented by the rest of India, and their voice is repeatedly silenced. The circumstances in which the President of India, Ram Nath Kovind, passed his August 5th orders were chaotic, and additional troops were sent in at the end of July. Over 5,500 Kashmiri politicians and activists, including 3 former chief ministers, were put in detention on the day before, and Section 144 was applied forbidding gatherings of 4 or more persons, and a total communications blackout was imposed. Neither the main nor the concurring judgments mention these events in their summaries of incidents preceding the presidential orders. Instead of acknowledging the enormity of the administration's actions, which imposed warlike conditions on the people, the judges accepted the alleged security threat in August 2019 to the Amarnath Yatra. This has allowed numerous unwarranted arrests of journalists, activists, and comedians who languish in jail on unproven charges of unlawful activities and/or sedition. The failure to prove security concerns has closed debate on policy and performance in the valley. The next article is Tax HFSS's Foods, View It as a Public Health Imperative. In this article, the writer says that the consumption of high-fat sugar salt, HFSS foods, is a major risk factor for various health issues, including obesity, diabetes, and high blood pressure. A World Bank report in 2019 shows that 70% of overweight and obese people live in low and middle income countries, with a 55% rise in rural areas across the globe. Non-communicable diseases (NCDs) burden in India has skyrocketed from 38% in 1990 to 65% in 2019. The economic impact of overweight and obesity in India was estimated at $23 billion in 2017, with an estimated $480 billion by 2060 if unattended. India's ultra-processed food sector witnessed a combined annual growth rate of 13.4% between 2011 and 2021. As the world's largest producer and consumer of sugar in 2022, the country has seen an alarming surge in consumption of HFSS foods. About 50% to 60% of edible sugar, salt, and fat produced in India is consumed by the processed food industry. Sales of snacks and soft drinks have tripled over the past decade, exceeding $30 billion last year. This not only poses severe health risks, but also impacts productivity and economic growth, necessitating urgent interventions to curb the rising consumption of these products. There is a global trend of using fiscal measures to combat obesity, with taxation being considered an effective means to reduce the consumption of these products. Some 16 countries, including Denmark, France, Hungary, Mexico, South Africa, the United Kingdom, and the United States, have now introduced a dedicated tax on HFSS foods. Colombia's junk food law introduced a gradually increasing tax on ultra-processed foods, providing a model for other nations. In India, Kerala had also introduced a fat tax way back in 2016, which later became part of India's goods and services tax in 2017. The imperative for taxing HFSS comes from significant market failures associated with their consumption, contributing to negative externalities and internalities. Negative externalities manifest as societal costs in the form of increased healthcare expenditures, while internalities stem from consumers' limited understanding and aggressive marketing, resulting in inadvertent harm to themselves. Taxes can offer a targeted and effective means to curb detrimental consumption habits, thereby reducing societal burdens. Implementing such taxes has shown promise in various countries, demonstrating a reduction in the purchase of unhealthy items. The next article is Incoming Call Regulation of Networld must address privacy concerns, simplify procedures. In this article, the writer says that the Telecommunications Bill 2023 aims to consolidate the law for wireless networks and internet service providers in India. The 46-page statute simplifies bureaucratic procedures, such as applying for licenses and permits for telecom operators. It also allows the satellite internet industry to operate without needing to bid for spectrum, putting India on a similar footing with other countries. The bill has been welcomed by industry bodies for streamlining their regulatory landscape and promoting their ease of doing business. It could provide regulatory stability and an enabling environment for the next phase of telecom expansion. However, issues persist, such as the expansive definition of telecom, which brings a range of services, and concerns of privacy and surveillance. The bill tries to deal with spamming concerns but requires additional compromises to privacy. The issues of surveillance reform and internet shutdowns have massive implications and must not be avoided just because they are contentious. The government must address these concerns with an open mind, considering the vast powers granted by the bill. To reassure the public of its clean motives, the government must conduct rulemaking with absolute transparency and consultation. Many of the Act's provisions need to subordinate legislation notified by the Department of Telecommunications before they come into force. The telecommunications landscape has evolved dramatically since the Telegraph Act was first passed in the 19th century, and regulation and lawmaking of the internet world need to comprehensively address all the issues that have come with this digital explosion. The next article is Turbulence in South India must ensure better cohesion among agencies during disasters. In this article, the writer says that Tamil Nadu experienced a month of turmoil in December, with heavy rainfall hitting southern parts like Thoothukudi, Tirunelveli, Tenkasi and Kanyakumari districts. The entire weather activity was considered a serious occurrence in the ongoing northeast monsoon, with nearly 4 million people affected. Infrastructure, including roads, rail lines, canals, tanks, electric poles, and many houses suffered. The meteorological department did not provide any indication of its scale and coverage for the massive rainfall that caught the state by surprise. However, the department's line of defense is its warnings of very heavy to extremely heavy rain for 3 days since December 14th. The country's weather forecasting system has not progressed to the extent that exact amounts of rainfall can be predicted. The scientific community should work towards precise forecasting, and there is scope for closer coordination between every department and agency serving the people. For instance, a better working relationship between the meteorology department and the railways would have ensured that the Tiruchendur train did not run. Changes to the services of certain trains in the southern districts were made only in a reactive rather than proactive way. A more cohesive working arrangement among different agencies can have a mitigating effect.